Thank you.
Okay, at this point, the meeting is being recorded. It's being live streamed as well. Aaron is over whenever you're ready.
All right.
I'd like to call our meeting to order here, the NIAA Realignment Committee meeting for this Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. Thank you, committee members, for being here. And at this time, let's go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's in the back corner over here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and good morning. Before any announcements or anything, we'll go ahead and get the roll call taken care of.
Colin Stallworth,
Here.
Pamela Sloan. Here. Art Anderson,
Here.
Mike Brooks,
Here.
John Fitzsimons,
Here.
Ron Gerzon, Ken Higby,
Here.
Dallas Larson,
Here.
Kevin McPartland,
Here.
Tony Polzian,
Here.
Ray Parks,
Here.
Mike Strong,
Here.
David Vitt,
Here.
Brett Walter,
Here.
Mike Cofer,
Here.
Donnie Nelson,
Present. You
Paul
hear me okay?
Anderson,
Here.
Bart Davis,
Here.
I am here, Robert Northridge.
Present.
Thank you, Lori. At this time, as the chair of this committee, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. A couple announcements. You heard the restrooms are right outside to the door to the left, I believe. Thank you very much for that information here. And Pam, do you have anything?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, good. So at this time, I am done with agenda item 4, other than hosting, thanking the host for having us here today. All you visitors out there, thanks for coming. Make sure that you've all signed in and signed up on the sheet on the table here to my right. So make sure your names are on that for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, good. We're going to agenda item 5, the public comment. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not on the agenda. Items raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon until compliance with notice procedures of the open meeting law has been accomplished. Members of the public who wish to submit their comment via email were instructed to contact Lori Lotz prior to the meeting and have their comments read into the record. Members of the public present need to complete a green public comment card and submit it to the administrative assistant prior to the opening of that item. A limit of 3 minutes per individual and 5 minutes per group will be imposed for both in-person and email comments. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are deemed to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensively, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. Start off with public comments received by email will be read into the record by Lori Lotz, and also the 5 minute time limit, 3 minute time limit will be imposed.
Okay. First public comment comes from Frederick Meyer, the wrestling coach at Spring Valley. I would like the NIAA to fix an inequity in the qualification process for the sport of wrestling. Currently in 5A, the North has 8 teams and qualifies the top 6 to compete in the state championships. The South has 11 teams and also qualifies the top 6 to the state championships. I know that this is simply a case of overlooking an inequity and that it is simple to fix. Please change this inequity immediately so the South qualifies 7 wrestlers to the state championships. Then also change the North to 5 qualifiers to the state championship. I have already done the math and it is the only proper way to handle this situation. The second one is from Rico Dunn, and there is an attachment that I know I will not get through in the 3 minutes. Speaking primarily for girls basketball, but I do believe the concept holds true to boys' side and other sports as well. I believe it is in the best interest of student athletes to align the leagues within the Southern 4A based on geographical location. The placement of teams within the 4A for sure by rubric, but once the teams within the 4A are determined, that placement should be done by geographical location. Our athletes are our students first, and geographical alignment shortens travel time, giving the student athlete back much needed time for academics. Some of our students take city buses to get home, and more time constraints due to that. Additionally, geographical alignment helps promote rivalries and school culture. Parents and other students at some schools cannot afford, be it financially or in terms of time, to travel to games halfway across the valley. Geographical cuts down on all of them. Finally, there is the concept of equity. The 4A North by default is aligned by geography. The currently proposed leagues based on rubric are using historical data to attempt to create competitive balance, which data from the last 2 years will prove that the rubric cannot be perfect in creating competitive balance. Here is the document that outlines the league proposal within the 4A. This proposal has been sent out to all prospective 4A girls coaches that are returning, and everyone who has responded in favor. Preface: a group of coaches listed below from the potential 4A South women's basketball have concluded that the use of the rubric should only be used to set division leagues of 4A and 5A. Basing the leagues on the rubric, it creates extra time, travel time, in order to balance the leagues on outdated results. No matter what we do to make each league even as possible, we are working with historical data. Due to this reasoning, we believe that geographical leagues within the 4A rubric would be best. The proposal: leagues within the 4A South be aligned geographically based on the teams placed into the 4A by the rubric and appeal process. The rationale: less travel time to opponents, more time for students to focus on academics. Students that take the city bus home after games can get back to school and on the city bus sooner, gets them home early. Equity: the 4A North League is geographical by default. Build regional rivalries. Makes it easier for students and parents to attend away games. Coaches in favor: these are the coaches who have said they are in favor. The coach from Cimarron Memorial, John Titus. Coach from Basic High School, Reese Caldera. Silverado, Rico Dunn. Southeast Tech, Todd Herrick, Mojave, Jessica Harrison, Doral, Jeff Sturgill, Canyon Springs, Christopher Walker, Foothill, Byron Wallace, Del Sol, Malcolm Wilkes.
3 minutes time, please. So please, on page 7 of your packet for the committee members, the rest of the information regarding public comment is on pages 7 and 8 of your packet. Basically, it just outlines the schools and the proposed 3 leagues. Thank you. And now for present public comments. We haven't, has anybody received any? Our outline areas that are here by satellite, do you guys have any public comments in your area? Donnie with us yet?
Yes.
He is, okay. Thank you very much. So that concludes agenda item 5. We'll go to agenda item 6, approval of the April 5th, 2023 meeting agenda for possible action. I need a motion, please.
Really, Park 3A North, I make a motion for a flexible agenda today.
Thank you. We have a motion, and that's a flexible one, I presume.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you.
Now it's Larson 3 South. Second.
We have a first and a second from Dallas. Any other questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Appreciate that. And we have a flexible agenda today regarding our agenda. On page 9 through 17 of your packet, committee members, we need to approve the March 7th, 2023, meeting minutes.
Ray Park, order 3A, I've read through them, hopefully everyone else has. Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Stop Simon, do it self, second.
Well, we have a first and a second. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We've approved the minutes from the March 7th, 2023 meeting. Agenda item 8, hearing of NIAA member schools and or districts regarding the recommendations of the realignment committee for the alignment of schools for the 23-24, 24-25 school years. The hearing will include appeals by schools recommended for placement into classifications for their winter sports for 3A, 4A, and 5A, in which they believe they should not be assigned for the 23-25 realignment or alignment cycle. For possible action, I'm going to turn this one over to Mr. Nelson. Can you hear me?
Yes, Chair Stallworth, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for your attendance, whether that be virtually or in person, traveling locally, or certainly, of course, traveling around the state. It's sincerely appreciated. The realignment process, I've always said, is certainly a major process within our association. I want to apologize on behalf of myself and our legal counsel, Paul Anderson, for not being there in person today. We made a decision very late in the setup of this meeting that we should stay in town in the Reno area. We're going to head to the legislature about 11:30 today, depart. We've got some Senate bills that are facing our association. We felt like it was best for us to be in person at those, not in any way, shape, or form to disregard all the work that goes into a realignment committee. So again, thank you, committee members. To try and give you an outline of what we're thinking for today, on pages 18 through 23, school by school in alphabetical order, those are the 6 appeals. In essence, we have a double on one of them that we have facing us here today. And it is my recommendation that we go sport by sport with these appeals. So for example, in starting with here at agenda item 8, I would recommend that we would start with boys basketball first. And then the process for that for boys basketball, that we would entertain both appeals individually. That would be Centennial would be first, and then Las Vegas second, based in alphabetical order with boys basketball. And then we would conclude boys basketball by making rulings or making decisions on those 2 independently. And then we would move to girls basketball next after we conclude boys basketball. And in girls basketball, we have 3 appeals in front of us. That would be Desert Pines, then Las Vegas, and then Palo Verde. And again, I would recommend we hear those each individually in order before taking any action.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir. If you would clarify on girls basketball, that first school is Democracy Prep.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say? My apologies.
Desert Pines.
Oh, I'm sorry. Democracy Prep. My apologies. Democracy Prep. My apologies. Misspoke. Again, so for girls basketball, 3 appeals: Democracy Prep, Las Vegas, and Palo Verde. We hear each of those individually, one after the other, 3 at a time in alphabetical order, and then again make decisions on each 3 of those independently. Then we would move to flag football, and that is SECTA. And finally, we would wrap up with wrestling, and that appeal is from our review. And again, we deal with SECTA and wrap up flag football, and then we would handle wrestling and wrap up with our review. And then we would go back into number 9, which is in essence the totality after number 8 to approve the entire winter sports alignment for 3A, 4A, 5A classification for winter sports. And any questions then as to my recommended process? And again, on a sport by sport basis, each school would have 5 minutes to present. We'll identify what the page number is that the appeal is listed in the packet. And then of course, the committee could engage in questions and answers with the presentation, with the presenters of the school, at the conclusion of their 5 minutes, if they do so choose to use all 5 minutes of their allotted time. Chair Stallworth, Co-Chair Sloan, any questions to that, or any questions as to agreeing or disagreeing with that recommended process for today and how we're going to hear item number 8?
Okay, so just to summarize real quick, Donnie, at this particular time, we are going to go girls basketball first.
Boys.
Schools. Pardon me?
Boys first.
Basketball. Boys first, girls second.
Flag football third.
Flag football, then wrestling.
That's correct.
once the boys go first, will we vote as a committee after the boys are done?
That
And
is my
then go to the
recommendation.
girls?
Yes, that is my recommendation to wrap up boys basketball first before we move on to the next sport. And as a
Okay,
note, we do not have any appeals in front of us at this time for bowling nor for skiing. So we have, again, boys basketball first, 2 appeals, girls basketball second, 3 appeals, flag football third, 1 appeal, wrestling fourth, 1 appeal.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and start with the boys. So who's first?
Yeah, Centennial. Yeah, Centennial would be up first, and their letter included in the package on page 19. So Centennial would present first. Obviously, for the record, we want the presenters to identify themselves, and then it'd be 5 minutes, and then the committee could engage in questions and answers with Centennial. After Centennial is done, including questions and answers, then Las Vegas would present second, and we'll identify where their appeal letter is in the packet after when it's their turn. Okay, that's my recommendation.
Okay. For the presenters, just make sure when you come up, introduce yourself and the school. I will start the clock. I will put my hand up when you have 1 minute left. Okay, thank you very much. You're up.
All right, Doug Hoover, Clinical Administrator at Centennial High School. Centennial High School would like to appeal the replacement of boys basketball from 4A into 5A. Based on our projected enrollment of 2,800 students, we would like to appeal based on competitive balance. During the 22-23 basketball season, our new head coach and program finished 14-8 overall and 5-5 in league play, qualified as a 6th seed in the 5A Southern League playoffs. During the 2019-2020 season, the program finished 9-19 overall and 5-7 in league play, did not qualify for the playoffs. And during the 21-22 season, the program finished 9-14 and 2-7 in league play, did not qualify for the playoffs. During this season, the team showed improvement, as shown below. We played our review on December 3rd. We lost by 7. We played in February 1st. We lost by 2. We played Durango on January 18th. We lost by 40. We played them again on February 14th. We lost by 11. And when we played the Pines on February 4th, we lost by 12. And then on February 2nd, we beat them by 5. So based on that information, we're requesting we move up.
Okay. Any questions? Any comments?
Kevin McPartland, 05 Go South. Yeah, I'd just say, just having seen them, and they're a totally different team at the end of the year from the one that Karen took over at the beginning of the year, and I think they should not be in the 4A based on what we saw. I would support this.
I would also like to remind committee members to reference back to page 24 is where the boys basketball realignment is. And also, as we go through this, the additional attachments that were sent to you yesterday, the rubric numbers will also come into play.
And if you look at those rubric numbers here, as far as where they're at on the list of their 14, they definitely look like they fit in that category. Very much so as well. And we appreciate you coming up and stating that. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Right, so what do you project down the road? So this realignment of 2 years, do you think you'd ever come back and say we want to change, or do you think that's where we want to stay?
My heart tells me I can stay 5A. It's not about, at least in my opinion, and most of my coaching staff, to talk to the players and our community. They often like to stay 5A. At least in my opinion, it's not about hanging banners. It's about being competitive.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Kevin McPartland, 45 South. Just to reiterate, I did have a conversation with the principal of Centennial, and he is of the mindset that Centennial should be 5A in everything. So that's his mindset.
All right. Thank you very much. Next.
Yeah, and Chair Stallworth, this is Donnie Nelson from the staff. Then yes, correct. If we move on to Las Vegas High School, letter of appeal is on page 21. And as Ms. Sloan said, thank you for referencing page 24 for where the alignment is currently. And then also again, the rubric points as well for everybody to look at for boys basketball. So thank you.
Thank you. Las Vegas, you're up.
Thank you. Mark Carantula, Assistant Principal, Las Vegas High School. Members, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Our Las Vegas High School boys are looking to appeal from the 5A into the 4A. For the following reasons, our school has not had the ability to have athletes enroll through certain programs such as magnet and open enrollment for many years, which has set us back prior to COSA. This is evidenced by, for our boys, 2 of our 10 varsity players were outside of our zone. And both of those athletes were coaches or were our students. They went there because their parents were teachers at our school. So that is the reason they were attending our school outside of our zone, which means that all of our students were zoned athletes within our school. Another thing, our lower level success, our boys JV program, which is the future of the varsity, they had an overall record of, they were 4-13. And so this does not set up success for our team nor the individuals that have to compete against these 5A athletes. And third, our socioeconomic disadvantages. Most of our athletes' families do not have the money to put into off-season leagues to travel. Many other 5A athletes play in other leagues around the valley, and our kids, they work with our coaches through intramurals throughout the summer. But they'll just play in some local tournaments. They do not have the advantage to go around the country and play in different leagues. So that's the reason for our boys that we are looking to stay in the 4A and stay competitive there and not move into the 5A.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start with a question here. On the rubric points, you finished 6th. And you talk about the JV program. On the varsity team that you had last year, were there any lower classmen, underclassmen on that varsity roster?
Yes,
Okay, so you had some freshmen and sophomores possibly playing on that varsity team that impacted what your JV record would have been.
correct. We did have some players. We had for sure a starting sophomore on our varsity team, yes. But at the end of the day, a lot of those players will feed to our program. So we are, at the same time, we did have a sophomore on varsity, but you know, that doesn't, we're still looking at that overall record of those individuals that would be feeding to our varsity.
Good. All right, but I mean, you finished in the 6th in the ranking here. So I mean, as a committee, we look at that as the primary focus, and you understand that.
Oh, absolutely.
And we can't project what's going to happen in the future, but that number does play an important role in the process of what we do and how we do it. So I definitely appreciate that. Any other questions?
Do you have off the top of your head, recall any scores or like when you played 5A opponents last year? Do you know, if you played any 5A, other than I know you played us?
Yeah, I know that we did not have success against the 5A. We don't play well against the 5A. What I'm looking for, my motive is to look for competitive games at every level. You know, I don't mind losing all of our games as long as they're competitive. I'm not looking to be the most successful team. I'm just looking for competition in every game that we play.
And you're projecting that you're not going to have that competition because it looks like this year and the past 2 years, you've been very competitive in those games.
We've been competitive in the 4A, yes.
Okay.
We've been competitive in 4A. We haven't dominated the 4A, but we've been competitive. Every game we play is a close game. It can go either way. But our coaches and I feel that we would not have any success. And it's not about finishing last. We just want to be competitive in the final.
And that's a projection on your part.
Yes.
Anyway.
Coming from 45 South, and I apologize for not knowing this, but I know Vegas made the state tournament this year. Did you make it last year as well?
We did.
So
We got to the exact same spot. We lost in the semifinals.
Okay, so 2 years in a row making the 4A state.
Yes.
Final. Okay.
And you're aware, your coaches are all aware that the 2-year cycle of the success that you were having, that you probably had a pretty good chance of probably being a team that was going to move up to the 5A.
Yes.
Based on-
Aware of the rubrics, yes.
You guys were aware of that.
Yes.
So this isn't a shock to anyone in your school. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great, Mark, I'm on the same line as Ron. Sorry, how many seniors are graduating on that team right now?
We have, I believe, four seniors. Two of them are starters and contributors.
I just want everybody to realize this is a 2-year realignment cycle. It's not 4 anymore. It's only 2.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Oh, wait.
Jump back to itself.
Diamonds.
You got to the semifinals, boys state, right? If you lose 2, it was Silverado, correct?
This year, yes, Silverado.
So he lost by 3 to Silverado. They're paying to go to 5A as well. But you said the semifinals last 2 years, right?
Correct.
It's on you versus still boys basketball.
Sure. Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Yes, so Donnie, at this particular time, based on the your discussion earlier, now it's time for the committee to go ahead and vote on those 2, correct?
Yes, Chairs Stallworth and Sloan, correct. My recommendation now is that we wrap up boys basketball in its entirety, and we would do a vote, independent Centennial vote, and then a Las Vegas vote, and again, boys basketball.
Good. So, thank you, Donnie. So we're at this particular time, we are looking for a motion for Centennial to move at this particular time. We're looking for a motion for Centennial to move from or 4A to 5A. We're looking for a motion.
I think the motion will be approved. Centennial's move from 4A to 5A with that.
We have a motion to approve.
Ray Parks, I'd like to second that one.
We have a second from Mr. Parks. Any other questions or discussions? Donnie, do we need a roll call vote or do we need to? Can we just go ahead and verbally do this?
You know, for the sake of consistency and transparency, I really would recommend a roll call vote, please. I just think it's going to be the safest thing to do for us. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. So the motion on the table for the roll call vote will be to approve the Centennial move for boys basketball from 4A to 5A. We'll go ahead and start with the roll call vote.
Art Anderson,
Yes.
Mike Brooks,
Yes.
Sean Fitzsimons,
Yes.
Ron Gerzon, Ken Hasty,
Yes.
Dallas Larson,
Yes.
Kevin McPartlin,
Yes.
Tony Polzian,
Yes.
Ray Parks,
Yes.
Mike Strong,
Yes.
David Vick.
Motion is passed. Thank you very much, committee members. At this time, we are going to go to Las Vegas High School's appeal, and their appeal is to go from the 5A down to the 4A or over to the 4A. Sorry about that. At this particular time, we need a motion.
Kevin McPartlin, 45 South. I'd like to make a motion that we deny Las Vegas High School's appeal to move to 4A.
Okay, we have a denial to move them to the 4A. I'd like to let the committee know that if there's no motion made, regardless, they stay where they're at. So we have the motion to keep them where they're at. So in future hearings, we don't necessarily have, if there's no motion made, they stay where they're at.
It's better for me to retract.
Why don't we retract it and we'll just retract so we wouldn't have to even have a vote. So at this particular time, we're looking for a motion to approve their appeal to leave the 5A to go to move over to the 4A. Going once. Going twice. The appeal is denied. Moving on, we're going to go to girls basketball. Which school is first? Democracy Prep. Democracy Prep, you're up.
Chair Stallworth and Sloan, just as a quick
Yes.
note, so this is Donnie Nelson, the staff, sorry to interrupt there for you. Democracy Prep right on page 20. Please note that Democracy Prep does not have any rubric points. They are coming out of the 2A. They have been placed in the 3A for all sports based on enrollment. But with that, there's nothing to reference for girls basketball with regards to rubric points. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Jason Gibson, Democracy Prep. First, I'd like to say thank you for having us. Democracy Prep would like to appeal to the decision of realignment to the 3A for our girls basketball program. Our girls basketball program wishes to participate in the 5A division. Our goal is to provide opportunities and platforms for our scholar athletes to take their talents to the next level. We believe wholeheartedly that they are capable of competing at the highest level. Over the years, our program has demonstrated growth and development here in Nevada. This year's team consisted of 1 senior and 1 junior. We're extremely young, mostly freshmen and sophomores, with some promising incoming talent from our middle school. As you may know, that our young talent led us in winning this year's state championship, remaining undefeated in conference play. In fact, the Democracy Prep's girls basketball team went undefeated amongst Nevada teams as a whole, going to be 7-0 this year. One of those notable wins being versus the number 4 team in the state. We are truly creating a culture here at Democracy Prep, and it's about believing in ourselves and our community. It's about standing on principles, teaching our young scholar athletes that they are second to none. We believe in creating pathways and breaking barriers for the younger generation. And I like to leave you guys with a quote. Competition is always a good thing. It forces us to do our best. A monopoly renders people complacent and satisfied with mediocrity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Kevin, let's start with the West South. Could you just talk to us about how enrollment works at Democracy Prep?
Well, enrollment wise, we got to basically multiply, you know, that we're working around 300, so we're going to be multiplying it's about 600.
I apologize, just how students apply to get in and how.
With a lottery.
A lottery.
Yes.
Not so much a question from Mr. Gibson, but just a comment, having seen Democracy play 3 games this year, and I know Mr. Northridge can chime in on this as well, because he saw them too. I don't know if they're the second best girls team in the state, the best girls team, they're somewhere in the top 3 or 4 though, based on the way they played this year. It was watching them play, it was an entirely different level than their competition, and having seen enough 3A, 4A games. Are they going to go out on the court and beat Centennial tomorrow? Probably not, but wouldn't bet against them either. Are there teams in the 5A that they could go out and beat right now? Yep. Not a question.
Thank you. Mr. Northridge.
Southern Coordinator, Bob Northridge, a couple things. Once again, I just want to jump on this big set to you guys. You're that good. You're on top 3 teams in the state, no doubt. I would like to jump on, on your lottery. It goes to a lottery when you are at full enrollment for class, correct? If you're not at full enrollment for class, it does not go to a lottery. Am I correct with that?
Still lottery no matter what.
Lottery no matter what. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I'm 2A South, again, just comments. I've worked with Jason a long time in the 2A South League where Democracy was placed. I agree that they could compete at the highest level. I know it's kind of unprecedented sometimes when the team is skipping a classification, but they're choosing to go up. We saw that with Slam Academy a couple years ago with wrestling, and it's worked out. This is a different sport, but I think it's a similar competitive thing. These girls, we were there for their senior night, and they didn't have hardly any seniors, and they were still pretty good. So I support that. Jason, with 5A, and wish him good luck with the girls program.
A couple of questions. Full capacity, what is your, I mean, is there a full capacity where you, at each class or school?
No, we're trying to grow, but right now we're stuck at this 300 mark pretty much. In the next year, we're looking to acquire a new space. We can grow, get a K-12, and the max number is 1,400. A lot of those seats are taken up by middle school and elementary.
Okay, and I'm Dallas Martin, Grace Dallas, sorry, I forgot to recognize that. My other question, I guess, would be more towards the board on this. If a team is granted an appeal to go to 5A, and after 2 years, do they have to follow the procedures, but then, oh, they can only go to the 4A after that, and so if in 2 years, Democracy Prep says, we don't like the 5A, we won't go back to 3A, they'd have to go back to 4A if that was to happen. I want to see if that was.
Their enrollment would qualify them automatically for 3A.
For 3A, yes. But if they're appealing to go to 5A, at that point, does that now take precedence that they're in a 5A school and they can't drop down to a 3A at the next realignment? That's my question. That's what I want to,
Yeah,
for future reference, because if they're gonna jump into this, I want to know, hey, this is what's gonna happen. You do this, these are the rules going forward.
That's true. I don't think the board and the realignment committee has ever had that type of a situation. I mean, I think this might be the first case we've ever had where we've had a team from the 3A jump a level
We
to
have
go.
slam wrestling. We have slam wrestling.
Well, Slam wrestling has, yes.
The other thing to consider with that, as we look at this, is we're operating in the timeline policies and procedures for this alignment. So
Okay.
it's not to say that TPP can't be different for the next alignment.
Okay,
We've
exactly.
gotten into that.
And that'll probably be something that the realignment committee will address at the next realignment cycle. Yes, Ray, and then
Three
Mike.
Parks, 3A North. What was your guys' discussion process to skip the 4A? With your coaches, your administration, kids?
Well, going back on the season, just seeing the, we were successful versus the 5A team we played. I don't like to drop names and things like that. We were very successful versus those teams, very successful versus the 4A team. Going out of state playing those teams is very high ranked in their areas. And speaking to our kids and their parents, we want to put our kids on the best way, the best platform to be recognized and go on to the next level to get our, the next level of education. That's what it's all about, is sending to schools and this is the best way.
So just expand a little bit. So, moving forward, do you think you have a feeder program that's gonna keep you there?
Right now, our feeder program is very promising. We just won the NCFA championship, winning that like going out the water. And also we have a lot more 6th graders and 5th graders and won another championship at the elementary level. So I'm expecting our feeder program, which is our school, to get better and better over the years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, Mike Strong, when we did this with Slam, but we also did it, I think, with Sparks track. Sparks. Soccer.
Yes, they went.
We've done it twice where they went.
They moved up.
So it's not something we haven't done. My question more, do you have freshmen and JV programs too, or we just have a varsity program?
We have a JV program. Our JV program will be with undefeated division. We went undefeated this year as far as the girls. We didn't have a freshman basketball team. Most of the teams in the 2A did not have a freshman basketball team. We do anticipate having a freshman basketball team next year.
I'm not sure what in the 5A, if you guys are running freshman girls basketball, but
They do.
3A, 4A, a little mixture in there, I think, when you're getting those teams.
Tony Poles and 45A South, that's rare for one of us to not have a B team. We typically all have all 3 levels.
Jason, I just have a couple questions. What's your gym capacity?
Just under 1,000, it's 989.
Okay, and this is just for my sake. Do you have security at your games?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
We also have a security and evacuation plan.
Thank you.
Bob Rogers, DSL. Yeah, when I went to the game, no problems. They good security. In fact, the night I was there, they had a girl go down and they had personnel right there, paramedics right there to take care of this person. So as far as size, security, everything, they're good to go.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Any other girls? That's it.
Real quick, Chairman Stoll,
Go ahead.
just want to let everybody know Mr. Curzon is coming into the Zoom meeting right now. So he is in.
Las Vegas.
Mark Ramsey, Las Vegas High School principal. I actually wanted to just see if I could withdraw my request for our girls 5A to be able to try to go to the 4A.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Palo Verde?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Jim Creel, athletic director of Paul Verde High School, with Christian Zell, our head girls basketball coach. We are appealing our placement in the 5A to the girls 4A. We've been competitive at the 4A level. We have struggled at the 5A level. We played teams from the 5A. We have not been dominant. I'm going to let Coach Smith speak to some of the games we played this past year against 5A.
Good morning, Realignment Committee. My name is Chris Roselle. As Coach Friel mentioned, we are appealing the move from 5A to stay in 4A. The past few years, we've been competitive, a stronger 4A team, but we've not been dominant. Playing 5A teams, we tried to schedule a little bit tougher this year. We played 4 5A teams. We went 1-3 in those games. One of those losses is to Bishop Minot, who has just been moved to the 4A division of the Reno teams. We also lost to Spring Valley and to Bishop Gorman. The one team that we did beat was Green Valley, and they just got moved to 4A as well. So that is our reason to try and, or not to move, but to stay in 4A.
Good, and you were well aware of the rubric system in the two.
And we realized
the same questions I said, but you're right, you know, you're in that most difficult position of that 12, 13, 14 range.
We are well aware of that.
We're aware of that. It's really a tough cycle. I know that's.
And we know it's tough for you as well. We know it's tough for you as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussions here? Please, if you turn into your packet to the girls basketball, our rubric list that we use as a realignment committee, you'll see, that's on the back page of your packet there. You'll see that they were 12th ranked on there. And I believe we took the top 13. And we took the top 13th and they were 12. And the rubric reports kind of put them where the alignment said that that's where they kind of needed to be. At this particular time, are there any other questions or discussions for them? Yes.
Coming back, 4-5 South, what is the current enrollment at television?
We have about 30 students.
How many? Sorry, 32. 32. Okay.
We're all
Yes.
ready for first grade.
All right.
What's your overall program? So like, you got full team, freshman level, full JV, full varsity.
Despite a huge enrollment, we have record participation in girls sports except for girls basketball. We are struggling to get girls in. Coach has been beating the street trying to go to the middle school to our PE programs, and we are struggling. We finished with less than 30 players for the year.
I actually picked players that were cut from the JV flag football team to fill out rosters just so we could have the 3 teams and play the JV and varsity.
And as far
Right
as
now,
like,
our program is 23.
and as far as your middle school defeated,
Right now, there's a few students at Rogish that will come to Palo Verde. Johnson and don't know. Some of our other feeder schools, I'm not quite sure at this point. But last year, we had 5 freshmen come in and join the program. So something similar, we'll struggle to build a new team this year.
Yes.
Sean, Science 2A South, who was your only league loss? You went 9-1 with Las Vegas. Vegas, the state champion, with you guys. And then you knocked off Clark. They were 12-0 in the desert, and you did get to the semifinals in 4A, right? Yes, sir. Was that your first time playing Desert Pines? Yes, it was. Figured you. Okay, that's all you do. Thanks.
Well, I'd like to commend you on the effort that you're doing. I mean, you tell this bleak story up here. You tell this bleak story, but the rubric says that you're doing pretty, the rubric says you're doing pretty good. you know, in the 4A, right?
Yes.
In the 4A, you're doing pretty good, up to the upper echelon of the 4A.
Correct.
And the rubric points moved you ahead of some of the things that weren't doing very well in the 5A and moved it up. So, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom.
Oh, I understand that. sir.
Okay,
Committee.
go ahead, Kevin.
No, just two things. One, Lori Renders in the waiting room.
He should be in.
Okay, that's okay. And I think, so I appreciate all the things you're talking about. Just the one thing I want to point out in the rubric is while Palo and Arborview are the 12 and 13, and it's that tough spot, but there is a pretty wide gap between us and the top next one. And I think that's a difficult situation.
That's what, yeah, and that's what the committee saw. And any other questions? Thank you very much. Yes. Mr. Gerzon, are you on? Can you hear us?
I am on, Rollins. Thank you, and I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So now we're gonna go to the vote here. We'll start off with democracy prep. Democracy prep is appealing to go from the 3A to the 5A. We're looking for a motion. Yes, Dallas.
I would propose that we allow democracy prep to move from 3A to 5A in girls basketball.
Sorry.
Sean, sorry to yourself, I will second that.
We have a first and a second. Any further questions or discussions? Roll call vote, please.
Art Anderson,
Yes.
Mike Brooks,
Yes.
Sean Fitzsimons,
Yes.
Ron Curzon,
Yes.
Ken Higby,
Yes.
Dallas Larson,
Yes.
Kevin Bartlett,
Yes.
Tony Polzian,
Yes.
Ray Parks,
Yes.
Mike Strong,
Yes.
David Vitt.
Yeah. Thank you. It passes, and congratulations, Democracy Prep. Now we're gonna go to Palo Verde. Palo Verde is appealing to go from the Realignment 5A to the 4A. Are there any motion? Going once? Going twice? The appeal denied, and they will stay in the 5A. Next on the agenda is flag football. Yes. Is it flag? Yes. We're gonna go to flag football. And what schools? Sectors here for flag football. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Chris Island, assistant principal, Southeast Career Tech.
Speak up. Yes.
Okay, no problem.
There we go.
There.
Come on, Chris.
I know.
Chris, I know it's been a while.
Members of the realignment team. After much thought and deliberation, the Southeast Career and Technical Academy is appealing the placement of its flag football program into the 5A classification. Please consider our appeal to be placed in the 4A. We believe that Tech has some unique characteristics that create a competitive disadvantage compared to the other schools slated to be in the 5A. Our current enrollment places at the smallest public school in the 5A, just under 2,000 students. While we have roughly 1,000 potential female students, 300 of those students are enrolled in our cosmetology program and are severely restricted when it comes to athletic participation due to having additional academic requirements that require an extended school day until 3:30 to make it nearly impossible for them to participate in athletics. Essentially, they only have the option to participate in one sport throughout the entire year. Many of our juniors are simply not able to participate in any sport due to their academic requirements. This limits our consistent pool of female athletes to about 700. Other 5A schools will have up to roughly 1,700 potential female athletes in the pool. On a strict numbers argument, that's not even have that. Our students come from all over the valley. We do not have an attendance zone in the same manner as comprehensive schools in 5A. We have no set feeder schools. We also created transportation issues that prevented many athletes from being able to participate, as they did not have transportation that would allow them to stay with them to participate, and they often did not live anywhere near us. This is especially true of our underclassmen who can't drive, and again, it puts Tech at a disadvantage, especially when it comes to developing our younger athletes. From a competition standpoint, for the teams remaining in 5, Tech was 0-4, averaged 1 score a game. It was defeated by an average of 2 scores per game. Against 2 schools that are slated to move down to 4A, Tech was 0-4 and was outscored 122-13 in those 4 games. Tech had 4 conference wins this season. All 4 of those wins came against teams that had moved down to 4A. At Tech, we have a unique situation regarding our potential athlete pool. This situation limits our ability to be consistently competitive at the 5A level. We also feel that while we did have a higher rubric score 2 years ago, due to having a group of senior athletes chose to select play football as the sport they could participate in, that our over 50-point drop in rubric points this past year is a more accurate representation of where our program currently is. No one saw a larger drop in Tech. Schools with 60-point year-over-year increases in deep postseason runs actually were dropped to 4A. We understand that it's a 2-year average, but we believe our situation and results situation and results justify our places in the 4A rather than the proposed places in the 5A. Taking into your consideration as we all work to create a positive, productive, and fair classification system for all of that athletes.
Can you talk to me about their rubric points?
Sure.
I don't have that sheet in front of me. I know that they were the borderline last 2 to 3 teams to move up.
They were 11 overall in the rubric with 206.258 points. Mr. Lyle was 100% correct when he said there was a huge drop off 2 years ago. Year before this, 128.909. This year, that dropped to 77.349.
Okay.
So there was a precipitous drop. They are hanging on in that bottom part of that 5A spot. There was a 20-point gap between Centennial and Clark for 12 and 13. So that's where we drew that line at, because that was the big line there. But if you look at just the 22-23 number, they're going to fall in somewhere in the 20s. And again, we do a 2-year cycle. Everybody knows that walking in. And within that time period, you're going to have this. That 1 year they're good, 1 year they're not. It's not always going to fall in to where you think it should.
Yeah, because it looks like them and Centennial are in the same boat. Realistically, they're the only one here.
Yeah, Centennial had that drop off, just not nearly as precipitous. They dropped off at 22.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the drop off between Centennial being the last team in.
Correct.
And Clark being the first team in 4A. So, that seemed like that was a logical spot that we could go into. Any other questions or discussions?
Coming from Fort back south, yeah, no, this is a tough one. I mean, I think they do have a unique academic setup. They have been able to find success. That drop off, is problematic, but I think of like Silverado football, right? Where with all those seniors they had, and it was still a no-brainer to move up, but they're gonna struggle. But this is a tough one. I mean, is there anything at the school that you had 3 years of over 100 points with those students that were seniors 2 years ago?
That court.
And this is, yeah. The same coach right now?
No, we have this year's first year.
Okay, Ron, you're up. I know Ron has a question on. Ron?
Thank you, Rollins. Ron Gerzon for the record. Where's the cutoff again? Did we go with top 12 teams moving up?
Bart, you want to answer that? The cutoff was the cutoff for flag football was at 12 with Centennial, at 12, Sector was at 11. Clark was at 13, who was the first one in at 4A. Correct? So those were the numbers here. And there's a 28-point difference there between them and Centennial at 12 and another 10, 30-something from Second. So there was the clear line there that the Realignment Committee saw. And you know, I mean, that's what we deal with, and those are the difficult decisions that we have to make. Yes.
Game two, you remember, I think it was 4 years ago, like Clark had a similar argument with boys basketball. And I mean, you had success, right? You got to deal with success, and they unfortunately due to COVID were there for 4 years. Yes. Instead of 2. Yes. So, I mean, I think it's a slippery slope to walk down. Like, this is certainly a unique situation because I mean, we've played Sector twice. I know what Mr. Isles is saying, but you know, I just think this is a tough one.
You know, they're all tough. All of this is emotional. They're all tough, and that's why, you know, from the leadership position I'm in here, the consistency has to come from us, and the numbers are the numbers, and that's what we usually go by. So at this particular time, are there any other questions? Yes, Mike.
Mike Strong, 1A. I was just out to Florida. I think Clark did 88 last year. Right, so if you just even, if we said, okay, we're a 1-year deal, we're 88, 77.
Where did this change?
Yeah, so, you know, Clark's not like, I think it would be different if you were 77 and Clark was 120, right? If that's, even then you combine those numbers together.
Yes.
I'm just not sure there's much difference with Clark and then at the same time. Trying to say. That makes any sense.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Solomon.
Yes.
Just kind of for clarity's sake, I'm sorry, Bart Davis on this, for clarity's sake, second is where it's at, because it was 6th in points in the first year of the cycle. They were 19th in points in the second year of the cycle. And that's what's making this tough, is they were middle of the road, or maybe even just a little bit below middle of the road in the second year. 35 teams being scored, they were 19. 35 teams being scored, and they were 34 teams being scored in the first year, they were 6th. So it's a little bit different than the Clark situation that we had 3 years ago, and the Clark was like 4 overall. And it was really difficult to move them down, especially after winning a state championship. And that's like, SECT is a little closer to that border, but yeah, it's being number 6 the first year is difficult to ignore as well.
Yeah, but I'm looking at this here and I see, you know, in that top 12 that we have currently right now, I see 3 to 4 teams that have a similar drop in total number of points.
Not quite as precipitous.
Not as much, but I mean, there's still quite a few that are within 10 percentage points of where they're at as well. And if we use that argument, those same groups could come here and make the same argument that they need to go down.
Without question, yes.
Or need to move. So I mean, those are the things that we have to keep in consideration. And the work that the realignment committee did with regard to where we drew the line and why. Yes, Dallas.
Dallas, 3 South, of the number of the schools that are in the 5A that we put 5A, how many of them moved up in the 4A? Is there, I mean,
Yes.
sorry.
I'll find it.
Okay, I did.
That helps to have one that we're working in this. Okay, from the 4A side. It's not gonna be a lot here. That was a lot of this was kept together. We had 14 teams in the 5A for these last 2 years. The cutoffs coming at 12 here. The basic is one school that moves up. Del Sol's another school that moves up. And Liberty, which had a fantastic team for a couple of years, is one more that moves up. And that's what I'm seeing.
So that,
Centennial, sorry.
so Sector's not the only 4A moving, there was other schools that moved up.
Oh, yeah, there was.
With them.
Yeah.
Well, second was 5A the last 2 years.
Oh, Sector was 5A, okay. They were 5A with their points. Okay, okay. So they're staying 5A.
Yes,
Because we haven't.
Okay, okay.
yeah, we have them staying at 5A.
But they were 5A in the previous realignment.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Any other comments? Is this the only one that we're voting for? Yes. This one here. So at this particular time, we're looking for a motion for sector to move from 5A to 4A. Going once. Going twice. Appeal denied. Moving on to wrestling. And that appeal will be made by
It's on page 18.
page 18 of your packet. And the realignment is on page 26. Gonna be here, I guess, now, I can do it if that, okay, oh, that would be fine. Yes, yes, and our review is appealing to go from the 4A regarding their alignment recommendation by our committee, and they want to move to the 5A. Go ahead, Kevin.
So yeah, so as you see on page 8, in general, we won state at 4A last year. This year, we were one of the top teams in 4A. Bishop Gorman moved up. We were right behind them by, again, 0.033. We are a school, we are 3,200 students, right on that edge. We feel that for competitive balance with our size and our points, we should be playing at, we should compete at the highest, at the 5.
Okay. Good. Any questions? Yes.
Bob Northridge, I've been involved, I'm a wrestling guy, 43 years in the state high school wrestling and followed our review this year. And no doubt they can compete in the 5A. They fit very well right in there, their kids.
Thank you, Bart.
For Davis and I staff, just for a refresher to the committee, we had this discussion back on March 7th. Wrestling is a little bit different in how we do the rubric from a lot of other sports, in that we don't really have that ability to compare 5A to 4A, 4A to 3A. Let's agree through our TPP, swap 2 and 2. Top 2 from the 4A go up, bottom 2 5A from 4A. We had a long discussion about this too, because the difference between Bishop Gorman, which was number 2 in rubric points in the 4A, and Arborview, which was number 3, as Mr. McPartland pointed out, 0.033 points. And I know Mr. Nelson, back at that meeting, also discussed the possibility of making that 3 teams going up, and we needed to handle that through our TPP, but then come to this part of our meeting for the appeal for that to go through and still follow the time policies and procedures. But, numbers wise, yeah, you're splitting hairs and a really thin hair at that between Gorman and Arbor.
Well, sure, it's just refreshing to be on the realignment committee to see schools wanting to move. It is refreshing to hear that. It's refreshing to see that. I know in some sports, people just, we're not going to move up because we can't win the state championship. Well, wrestling programs, we could say what slam means to wrestling is like what other schools mean to their sports. And slam has definitely indicated that and shown that over the years. And yet we have a program that say, hey, look, we want to go up there and do that. That's really refreshing. Appreciate that. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, we need a motion.
So I motion for Friday South, I make a motion, we approve our reviews, appeal from 4A to 5A in wrestling.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Ron
Curzon.
The principal. We have a first and a second. We will do a roll call vote. Any further questions or discussions beforehand? Okay.
Art Anderson,
Yes.
Mike Brooks,
Yes.
John Fitzsimons,
Yes.
Ron Gurson,
Yes.
Ken Hinky,
Yes.
Dallas Larson,
Yes.
Kevin McPartlin,
Would that be abstaining or abstaining? Abstaining,
Tony Polzian,
yes.
Ray Parks,
Yes.
Mike Strong,
Yes.
David Vitt.
Yeah.
Motion passed. Thank you very much. We are gonna go to bowling.
We have no further news.
We have no further appeals. That ends the appeals. So that means we go to agenda item.
With one exception, Chair Stallworth, we just want to double check to make sure that anybody here in attendance
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
is not, didn't want to appeal and just didn't put a letter in or something like that.
Is there anyone out there that wants to appeal or have any questions regarding the appeal? Thank you. All right, so then that concludes agenda item 8. So I think that 9 will be Donnie. Are you still there? Because basically what we need to do is put all of those together and all agree that all of these together now will represent the adoption of the realignment committee as a whole.
Yes, thank you, Chair Stallworth. I am still here. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for quickly making sure before we exited 8 that we didn't have any other appeals that were out there for any other sports. So we have satisfied number 8. So what number 9 is now is we're going to go pages 24 through, I believe it's 28, and we're going to just go over each league individually and how it's set up within the sport. Sorry, 24 through 29. And then this is item number 9 to, in totality, approve what we have for alignment for our winter sports 3A, 4A, 5A classifications. We'll start on page 24. We have the addition of Centennial, which then becomes a 12th team in the 5A for boys basketball. So we'd add a 12th team there. Mr. Jackson sent us very, very nicely a survey that was done with schools with regards to tournament formats. And so this a little bit plays into that. I'll refer after I do a recap here in a minute to Mr. Davis about what leagues can do and alignments with regards to league structure. But I'm going to recap it, and I'm going to kind of recap his notes on 3 sports that were mentioned and how this fits into really what we have on paper here and what may be offered from league alignments related to tournament formats. We'll talk about that later. But to recap on page 24, then we have an addition, so just one move, and that is Centennial, which would be added to the Class 5A Southern Region. Centennial, then, if you look at the 4A Southern Region out of the Sky League, Centennial would be simply deleted from the Sky League. However, Mr. Davis, just a question to you then, with the deletion of Centennial from the 4A Sky League and added to the 5A Southern League as one league of 12, that's how we have it right now, and that matches what the survey said, sort of in a split survey from Mr. Jackson. Is there anything we need to do, Bart, with regards to the 4A and recircle seating with Centennial leaving there?
Yeah, the 4A becomes one wave and then you say, Low C and Valley stay where they're at. They're the 2 teams that are first and second in points. And these are set up, just so that you know, in this alignment. The Desert League got the first team in order. That was Low C. Mountain League second, then Sky, then Lake. They're set up the way they are so that theoretically 1 and 4, 2 and 3, and we go through that way. The Serpentine Legacy would slide over the Centennial spot. Rancho would move up, and we'd have a whole lot of waves. What we'd end up with is 4 16 leagues. That wave would be done for everybody shortly after this meeting to move them all. Right now, while we're running meetings on 2 different laptops, it'll be a little bit tricky, but Legacy would move over. We'd start the ripple effect of everybody changing a league other than Low C and Valley. A handful of those teams that would double up teams of the certain team, they would stay.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Davis. And a note on that is because the Desert League obviously has the extra team right now, again, with Centennial still listed in there, with AN+. And so therefore, right, with Centennial out, we would now have 4 balanced leagues of 6. And so how we do this in totality with that movement, obviously, again, based on time and equipment that's being available, I want to make sure we can reflect this to everybody. That, and again, there won't be follow-up appeals to this once we move the leagues. The league alignments, when we recircle seed, will become what they become. This appeal process will now be done. A question to the committee, do we in good faith be able to say, we know the NIA staff will circle seed the 4A again, so we can approve basically boys basketball alignment with the understanding that will happen. And of course, Centennial move to the 5A. Is that satisfactory to the committee to be able to do that, to give us a blessing of league alignment, that our staff will do that? And again, the 4A will still consist of 4 leagues. That was also mentioned in Mr. Jackson's survey. And then the 3A, same thing, Southern Region. In Mr. Jackson's survey, it does call for, and obviously we've got Mr. Larson there as well, but two leagues within the 3A Southern Region. And we know the 3A Northern Region is going to stay where it is, and we know the 4A Northern Region is going to stay where it is. So that's my recap on boys basketball. And again, I want to go recap all the sports, but keep that in your mind, and maybe you answer that question right now. Is there a blessing that to approve this when we get to it, after we review all the other sports, that the NIA staff will have the league alignments for 4A produced as soon as possible?
Okay, I'll go Bart first and then Dallas.
Bart Davidson, I staff. Just for the committee's information, again, we've always given freedom to the league presidents after we have put our recommendation together, forwarded it onto the board's approved it. If there needs to be a move in leagues to consolidate from 2 into 1, 4 to 3, however they want to do it, or split out further, they've always been given that anyway under what we do right now. So we would put forth really as a recommendation. It's going to be done tonight. We'll go forward to the board in a week. And at that point, if the leagues decide we do need to make changes because of scheduling purposes, whatever, league presidents have that first.
They have that ability. Yes, Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas Larson 3A South. So the Tim Jack, that was about league games, not the tournament formats, right? It was just about how the coaches or each school wanted to have their league games scheduled. So what I'm saying is the 3A boys, 8 wanted to play everybody once. So when I read that, I'm thinking, well, then they want one big league, because why would we play just each team once, but still have separate leagues and one? But you're saying we could, the coaches or the 3A South could make that determination even after the board approves this. So we want to leave it the way it is, but if based on the fact we're going to only play each one once and not home and away on the same side.
As long as we're doing it before the season starts, if we're doing it for both years.
Okay. Yes, do it.
Okay. Which is weird, because the boys voted to have, the boys basketball voted to play everyone once. The girls side voted to play their side twice and not play the other side at all. So now we have a split between the boys and the girls. How in the end, we're going to have 8 in the tournament. It's just how we get to those 8, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Donnie, are you looking for a motion to what now? Just approve?
No, sir. What I want to do first is recap all the other leagues as well. If that's okay. We'll go to the other sports. I'm sorry. We want to go to page 25, and I want to review girls basketball as well, so we understand what the big picture is. This of coming out of here and how we've got it proposed out of our office to then, again, as Mr. Davis said, allow the leagues to create some flexibility in what they may want to do based on our recommendation. So on page 25, we have the addition, one move, the addition of Democracy Prep to the 5A Southern League. Again, looking at what a recommendation is in a survey, that it was for the 5A to have one league. And then the 4A stays as is between the Northern Region and the Southern Region having 3 leagues. The Class 3A, the Northern Region staying 2 leagues, and the Southern Region for the 3A. Obviously we have a scratch out of Democracy Prep there. And Mr. Davis, I don't believe the 3A Southern Region then would be circle seated in this case, correct? It would just be a simple scratch out of Democracy Prep, and the Desert League would have just the 6 teams. Is that correct?
6 teams and 7 teams.
Yes, and Bart Davidson and I staff, Keepo is the X factor in this as to whether or not they're going to have girls basketball. Don't believe they've had it, Mr. Larson.
No, I don't think
So they would come out as well. Democracy would jump to the 5A. We'd have 14 teams sitting in the Southern League. Again, that freedom is there for the president to, if the schools want to go 2 leagues of 7, go 2 leagues of 7. We'd have Keepo lift out, we'd have Democracy lift out, and the school that would shift from mountain to desert with the Kings.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
You're saying that, you're saying that Equipo has not ever had a program?
No.
We were uncertain as to whether or not they were gonna have one, put them in there, to my knowledge, they've not, because they use girls bowling as their.
So we put them in there because what?
We were uncertain as to whether or not they were gonna have a team with them being 3A. We have since found out they will not have.
Okay,
We need confirmation.
we need people to commit prior to this. Okay, thank you.
All right. So then, Mr. Davis, to clarify, Cadence would shift over, correct, just to make sure we're, would shift over to the Southern Regions Desert League in place of Equipo.
Nelson, that's correct, assuming that the 3A Southern League just doesn't go to one giant league, yes.
Correct. And then, Mr. Larson, you'll have the flexibility to work on that from this point forward. Okay. All right, we'll go to page 20. Any other questions on girls basketball? Okay, so if we go to page 26, then the way we have 5A set up is Arborview would be placed into the Southern League. That now becomes 12 schools there. Arborview gets deleted out of the Desert League in the Class 4A. Again, based on qualifying, when we get to tournaments, having the 4A have two qualifiers, a desert side and a mountain side, that setup in the league alignment seems to be appropriate at this time. And then the Class 3A set up as a northern region and a southern region. So any other questions on wrestling? Page 26. Okay, page 27, that is as presented. We have, again, in line with Mr. Jackson's survey of schools, that the 5A Southern League would be one league of 12 in Classic 5A flag football. The 4A would be two leagues, a desert league and a mountain league. And the Class 3A would be one league, as I've seen in the survey. And in Dallas, again, you would have the flexibility to look at that, but I think that's where we've been with the 3A, is to have one league in flag football. Any questions on flag football? Okay, boys and girls bowling, page 28, set up just as we had. Again, no appeals today, no movements. That's how we have boys and girls bowling set up with the Southern League. The 4A again having a desert side and a mountain side, and then the 3A also having a desert side and a mountain side for boys and girls bowling on page 28. Any questions on boys bowling? All right, last one, page 29, boys and girls skiing. This is Class 5A Northern Region, and also a Taiho Basin, two independent leagues set up just as you have, and again, no appeals to ski. So with that, Mr. Davis, to make sure I didn't miss anything, any other comments on anything from pages 24 through 29?
Mark Davis and I staff, we catch for that, and obviously we look at wrestling, we just lifted the #1 team out of the 4A and into the 5A, so that we have the ripple effect through rejiggering leagues for those teams that remain, to make sure we stay true to our certain team and season teams.
Okay.
Very good, thank you.
With boys basketball.
So the
Thank you,
vote,
Mr.
Donnie,
Davis.
would then. So the motion would be then to accept all of these changes all in one vote.
That's correct. Again, with the flexibility that our league presidents have the ability to come back and reorganize leagues if necessary. And obviously that's going to have to happen in quick time. So.
Fantastic, great. So we're looking for a motion.
Great, Park Northern 3A, make a motion to present to the NIAA Board of Control our agreement today with the flexibility of our league presidents to determine placement of schools.
Thank you. We have a first, do we have a second?
Strong second.
Thank you. So we have a second. Any further questions or discussions? Yes, Dallas.
Yeah, just. Now talking 3A South, so. Just want to make sure when the timer, if these league presidents decide they want to go geographically, are you saying that they have, like, league presidents have the ability to do that?
No.
Okay.
Geographically.
They have the ability to take the leagues that exist as it is and change the number of them, basically.
Okay,
You have 2 leagues, you can go to 1, you can go to 3,
okay.
but then we would put the teams in.
Okay, I mean, because that topic came, that's been a topic, so when would that happen? What's
The geographic
Yeah,
aspect, that would be a next realignment.
so the next, so would that be a board, or is that the realignment?
That would be that would be
After this.
discussed at the Forward and probably the realignment.
But that, we'd want to do that beginning of that realignment cycle, not the middle one, the next sports, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dallas, that would take a change the timeline policy.
Yeah, right. So that's-
Again, you know, what are they gonna be for the next time the committee meets? We don't know.
Yeah. Because that was, I mean, it brought up, and I was thinking about that, so I just want to make sure what the appropriate time would be for someone that wanted to present that.
That would be,
Thank you.
okay. So we'll do the roll call vote.
Oh, yeah. Play Lowry, home and away, different transportation.
We don't need to, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Finished, agenda. Item 9. Okay, tournament format for alignment of schools for the 23-24, 24-25 school years for possible action. Donnie?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair Stallworth. We'll go to pages 30 and 31. We have 2 sports to finish for, again, recommendation to the Board of Control. And we have bowling at the 4A and 3A levels only. 5A is done. And then flag football on page 31 at the 5A and 3A levels only, not the 4A. So to summarize what you have in there and what the recommendation is on the in the packet, again, based a little bit on surveys with Mr. Jackson and some reporting back, is that we see on the class 4A for state bowling, 5 were in favor of keeping the team format at 12 teams. That's where we've been for 4A bowling. And then in 3A bowling, recommendation that we have an 8-team format now for team competition. And then the individuals, because bowling has a team bracketed format first, and then we have individuals, or the order may be individuals first, but then the individuals have their own tournament. So again, to recap for the 4A, 12-team format, and then 20 individuals for their format. And then in the 3A, 8-team format, and then 20 individuals as well for their format. So that's bowling. We'll stick with bowling first and make sure anybody doesn't, nobody has any questions about bowling formats, what we're looking to approve. Okay.
So looking for, Mark?
Bart Davis and I staff, just for clarification on this, we directly went to Brian Gregory, who's our bowling coordinator. He sent out the survey to the bowling coaches that were involved in this. What you see is the results coming back. So this is what the coaches directly have said. They would like to have in place. Obviously, the 4A vote is pretty tight. We didn't get everybody back. The 3A, we did get another one that came back after the deadline, but didn't get included in this. It was still the same in favor of the 18 format.
So just reviewing here, we've already passed the 5A
Correct.
bowling process. We just need a recommendation to approve 4A and 3A. That's the recommendation we're looking for now.
That's correct. Thank you. And again, we'll bring to the Board of Control, we'll bring all the tournament formats back for all sports, obviously for Board of Control final approval as we exit this winter season realignment process, again, for alignments and tournament formats. Any other questions on bowling before I recap flag football? Yeah, and thank you to Brian Gregory again for all his work and surveying on our behalf to find out what the schools wanted for formats. Same thing, Brian Neiswanger for flag football assisted us in this process. We have the 5A and the vote, as you'll see there for the 5A, where 7 of the teams were in favor of switching to an 8-team format rather than 12, switching to 8. Class 4A is already done. And then in the 3A, the recommendation was to keep an 8-team format in the 3A, again, for flag football, page 31. So yield to the committee for any questions on flag football tournament formats for the 5A and 3A.
Bart?
It's all for Davis and I staff. This was Shadow Ridges coach Matt Neiswanger, who's the president of the Flag Football Coaches Association. He sent out the survey. We had asked him if he would help us out with that and see what are the exact results we got back from him. He actually did a few other questions about tournament formats for region stuff and scheduling. That's relevant information from you, and it's pretty clear.
So good. We're looking for a motion for a 18 playoff for the Class 5A and Class 3A. 4A has been passed already.
That's what you do then piggyback into, or we can keep them separate. You just did it there as well.
Yeah.
If you just want to do them as presented, you want flag bowling.
Let's do that. We're looking for a motion to approve both bowling and flag football as presented.
Ray Park number 3A, I'd like to make a motion to approve both sports as presented here today.
Thank you. We have a first. Do I have a second?
Dallas Larson, 3A South, I'll second.
Dallas, second. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. We have a tournament format now for state bowling and for state flag football.
Here comes Dallas bowling.
Not sure why they don't. Not sure.
Agenda item 11, the review of spring meeting dates for the alignment committee for possible actions.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Again, Donnie Nelson from the staff. Just to recap our upcoming spring meeting dates, May 30th. That will be the alignment process meeting that will be held in the Reno Sparks area. And then June 7th will be the appeals meeting, and that will be held in the Las Vegas, Henderson, North Las Vegas area. So May 30th, initial step 1, and then June 7th, appeals step 2, wrapping up term formats as well. And again, this is, we can take action if we want to. We don't have to. These dates are already been set and they've already been approved within the timeline. I think if we were to have a change, we would then obviously need to have action, but otherwise these dates have already been previously approved.
Yes, Mike.
So, similar maybe response that Dallas had regarding the one, subject that was brought up regarding wrestling state tournament setup with the 5 and 7. When's the right time to consider that? Is that now or?
Bart,
That would be for our next real meeting to do that. Or we've had a plan in place for this, for timeline policies and procedures that have been passed by this committee and through this board.
So in essence, that was late for this, so it would have to be.
yes, it will have to be the next realignment cycle. Yes. And yes.
Kevin from Kevin, I just want to make sure, because I'm confused on what kind of guidance to give them since they put in the public comment. So is it start at Board of Control and then the realignment? Where should they?
The realignment committee will start with the timeline policies and procedures. So it should start with that. If they don't, as Mr. Nelson has said, there's an expectation that the next time we do this, it could look extremely different. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but the realignment committee would draft the timeline policies and procedures and would send those to the board.
For the very beginning of the next realignment.
There's a beginning.
South on 3A South, my one question about that for this problem is at that meeting, we won't know how many north-south teams, because the realignment hasn't put the rest of the schools into the different things. So how, I mean,
It's also, Court Davis and I staff, it's also a discussion between North and South in terms of tournament format representation that we've had throughout this whole process, where they don't want it to be completely one-sided, but I think what you could do in that case, not to try to be a legal counsel or anything, is it could go through and just say is proportionate to the number of teams in the North and South and draft that as a part of the TPP, if that's what we're doing.
I think that's a slippery one, then you're gonna have to do that all the way through every sport, and you're gonna have a nightmare.
Mr. Parks, I agree 100%.
it seemed like the last meeting we had where we approved the wrestling state format could have been where we discussed that, correct?
It could have been for this realignment cycle. Yeah, that's, but
We approved wrestling last meeting, we approved the state format for wrestling, so that
Yes.
should take place last. It could have.
if that was brought up at that time, yes.
And if the committee were to be willing to entertain.
Yes. So did we get a proposal?
Real quick, Art Anderson, 584 North. Along with that, maybe possible future change to the wrestling tournament format, I guess would be we would want to see is how would that bracket then look? What would the actual brackets look like if it's 7 teams from the south, or 7 individuals from the south, 5 from the north? How do they match up? I mean, you're basically gonna have 2 people wrestling each other from the south right off the bat. I don't see how else it would break down. So,
So before we get into that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, cutting you off. This
But
is
just,
not agenda
I know,
item.
we're kind of,
have their whole thing.
yeah, so we're really kind of off base here. We're kind of
Absolutely.
turning a little bit. I think we need to stay focused and finish this up. And that would definitely be a topic that we bring back up as we move forward. But I don't want to confuse people anymore. Dallas, you had something?
I just had a question, but I can wait till after, the question about the basketball, because I feel like we did something for basketball, didn't we, in the 4A state basketball for boys, where it was a rotating
And again,
north?
we're in a kind of dangerous area, it's not an agendized item.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
trying to remind myself if that was what we did last time or not.
So did we get we had the motion, did we vote? Okay, so the dates have been approved. We don't have to vote on anything. There's no action. May 30th, meeting will be in Reno. The June 7th meeting will be Las Vegas.
That's correct.
I'll be absent on the day.
Okay.
I don't know.
Ken, you'll be gone too? Can we go on the tour with you?
So hold the meeting.
All right. I would just email them to just let them know, and we'll get that done. So we go to agenda item 12. Okay, so we're gonna go to agenda item 12, the public comment. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not on the agenda. Item raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon until compliance with notice procedures of the open meeting law has been accomplished. Members of the public who wish to submit their comments via email were instructed to contact Lori Lotz prior to the meeting to have their comments read to the record. Members of the public present need to complete a green public comment card and submit it to the administrative assistant prior to the opening of this item. A limit of 3 minutes per person and or 5 minutes for a spokesperson of every group will be imposed for both in-person and email comments. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are determined to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. Public comments, are there any? None here. Are there any out there in the live public world?
NIA Realignment Committee, nothing received in the NIA office. Checking emails, checking text messages, voice messages, nothing received in our office.
All right, thank you, Donnie, and I'm gonna turn it over to Pam before we end the meeting.
I just want to make an ask, I would like to ask staff, I know this has been asked many a times, even at the Board of Control meeting, that when we look at rubric numbers, that the 3A numbers are present. We have asked that. Second of all, hang on, I'm talking. Second of all, I would ask that it's always part of the packet. It wasn't initially, and that all supplementary information is included initially. So we're not receiving information the day of the meeting. So that, I'm just asking staff going forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Co-Chair Sloan. Appreciate it. Well noted.
Good. Any other comments for the order? Meeting adjourned.